it's evolved a lot over time. I definitely want to introduce people to experiences that don't have to have booze tied to them, because so much of my career and networking and friendships and relationships were started with a drink. And I don't think that's necessary. I think that there are so many other ways for connection. I think that everybody has such a different experience when they like take a step back and they're like not drinking for maybe it's like a weekend or a week or a month, and just kind of like having a better understanding of who they are and like how they feel like without alcohol. I just want to like kind of give that opportunity to people, but like on their own terms.
Stories are powerful.
Welcome to the Rise, Recover, Live podcast, brought to you by The Phoenix. This is a space where people impacted by substance use can come to share their story of strength and resilience, get open and honest, and inspire hope and build community through shared experience.
We'll be talking to people in our community on their own recovery journey and shine a light on the topic of recovery in all its forms. Maybe you'll hear some of your story in theirs.
Let's show the world that together we rise, recover, and live.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast. We are your hosts, Bryce III, he, him pronouns.
Liz McKean, she, her pronouns.
Liz, how's your energy?
My energy is a little, it was a little frantic. I feel better as soon as I hop in here and see your faces. So feeling more settled now than I was 20 minutes ago. How about you?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What has been your DoorDash orders?
Uber Eats, Bryce.
Uber Eats. Oh, okay. My bad. I forgot you had the allegiance. The Uber Eats.
I pay a yearly fee, if I can call that an allegiance. Yeah. Let's see. Last night was Chinese food. It was sesame tofu and fried rice, no egg.
Yummy, yummy.
Mm-hmm. I know. I was going to be like, I don't order it every day. And I was like, as a matter of fact, I had my leftovers for lunch.
Well,
also, no hate to DoorDash if people are loving DoorDash. I just
you literally cut half of our listener base in half.
I know. I'm like, oh man, the one thing we come in real divisive about is our meal delivery services.
I don't care who it is, as long as they bring me some food.
Exactly.
With that being said, I'm good. These two wonderful people in this call today allowed for me to eat my protein bar like very quickly before we got started. So I'm not hangry. I am excited to have this conversation, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk about what this person that we have here today is involved in and the trip that she just recently took. So, Liz, who do we have here today without further ado?
We have the wonderful, the brilliant, the patient throughout tech challenges, Hilary Sheinbaum, who is the author of Dry Challenge and the founder of goingdry.co. And this is not her first rodeo on a media platform, so we feel very grateful to have her here, and also for taking a time. I think this is the third time we've gotten on this platform trying to make sure it would work, and it's working. So welcome, Hilary. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back for the first time. Like Liz said, we like to give you all a peek into behind the curtains. We've had some technical difficulties, tech challenges that have us on a pretty good friend basis at this point, and we haven't even recorded the episode.
It's true.
But yeah, just as recovery is, as intentional living is, we continue to show up, and Hilary has been an absolute champ in showing up. And so we're excited to have this conversation today. How's your energy?
Thanks. It's better now. I've had some coffee. I was a little tired, getting a little, getting over the jet lag, which I'll tell you all about. I feel good. Positive. A little sleepy, but positive.
Good. Oh, yeah. Positive. We'll take sleepy with a little pot. It's like, I'll take a cold day if the sun is shining,
Right.
I feel like that's
very fair.
You gotta have that silver lining. Well, one of the things that felt like what's the word? Like a serendipitous thing about our tech not working last time we met was that you had this very cool trip coming up that I feel like is almost like it all built on the foundation of your book and all the work that you've done with like Dry January, and now we get to hear about that trip as well, which will be really fun.
Yeah.
But first, I think it would just be helpful for folks who haven't heard of you. Can you tell us about yourself? Because I believe you do not identify as a person in recovery, but as a person in recovery myself, I can say you've done wonderful things for so many people, helping them either find recovery or just find more balance in their lives. So what's up with Dry January?
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. And yeah, it's always an interesting conversation around identity because I kind of sit in a middle place. But my story actually started around 2016. And at the time, I was a red carpet reporter. So I was regularly interviewing celebrities like Brad Pitt and Selena Gomez and, every real housewife of every city there is.
So cool.
Yeah, I was just telling a friend, it's so funny. Like I used to interview the cast of the Jersey Shore on a regular basis. And anyway, fun times in a former life. When I was doing that job, it started in the evenings. So during the day, I would freelance and write stories about beauty and health, and food and beverage was a big part of that. So when I wasn't going to these movie premieres and album release parties and after parties with, top shelf liquor and flowing champagne, I was writing about booze. It was a big part of my life. And certainly as a 20-something in New York City who was, exploring New York and dating and, just going out with friends, alcohol is everywhere in the city and people don't drive. So they take advantage of that. Late 2016, I had dinner with a friend and we were just catching up and he brought up this topic of Dry January. And I changed the subject because it just was not on brand for my life at the time, certainly not my job. So a week later, it was New Year's Eve. And as I was, tipsily texting my friends who were not at this New Year's Eve party and wishing them a happy new year, I decided to make a spontaneous bet with my friend, Al. He agreed. So when the clock struck 12 and the ball finally dropped on New Year's Eve, our bet and dry challenge began. Bet was who could do a dry January, and whoever won would be awarded dinner paid for by the person who drank. Given everything that I just told you.
High stakes.
Yeah. He really thought that his odds were good. And I thought mine were better because he was my +1 to all of these crazy events. And he was, going out more than I was. So at the time, yeah, we started this dry challenge, this bet, and I was really stubborn. And he was peer pressured by a girl that he met at a bar about 2.5 weeks in. And so even, upon him drinking, I stayed sober for the rest of the month. And as cliche as it sounds, it completely changed my life. And not just, my sleep or my skin or my perspective for those 30 days, but now it's become a tradition that I do every year. So this past January is my 8th dry January. And I've certainly done a number of sober months in between and for, longer stretches of time as well. And I can say that, my life has certainly evolved since then. I don't write about booze anymore. Clearly, I wrote a book about how not to drink during a dry month. And at this stage, my consumption is far, far, far less than it used to be. So it's been crazy, but I'm a journalist too. And I always wanted to write a book. And I never in a million years thought that I would write about not drinking because that was never part of my story, or I didn't think it was, but clearly here we are. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
So what changed for you after that initial bet where you took that 30 days of January for the first time off? What changed for you that shifted your perspective?
There is so much. I think the first thing that really changed my mindset was how well I was sleeping. And as somebody who, had been living in New York for a number of years and working as a freelance reporter and thinking that, my busy life was just stressful and I was naturally anxious, I kind of accepted that my sleep was going to suffer. And the truth was that once alcohol had been eliminated from my diet, within the first week and a half, I was going from sleeping 4 to 5 hours a week to sleeping 7 to 8 hours. Sorry, not a week, but a night. That would be really good.
I was like, I have a real problem.
You was redlining.
Deprived, but it was pretty bad. So yeah, 4 to 5 hours a night to 7 to 8 hours a night. And anybody who's had a poor night of sleep versus like a wonderful night of sleep knows how that affects your mood, your productivity, your relationships, your diet, what you're craving, just like everything in life is just a little bit easier when you have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
So I think that was like a huge difference for me. But there was so much, there were tons of things. Everything from like dating was completely different. Like my skin looks different, even in like the driest, coldest season. And yeah, it really made me realize also like how abundant ads were for like alcohol and how constant booze is in every aspect of life, not just going to a party or going to like a bar. Of course, you're going to expect alcohol there, but it just, it was very eye-opening.
Yeah. Do you think that you would have ever embarked on that journey had it not been for like a bet or like a challenge?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't drink a lot in college. I think that moving to New York and, having these work experiences that were very focused and centered around booze was more of an opportunity and an excuse to, have a glass of wine, have a drink, open bar, everything's, free and flowing and that sort of thing. I don't know. I had previously written for, some publications about like 30-day challenges that I had done. And these were focused on fitness, but they were never focused on like a diet change or anything like that. This one, I don't think I would have done it because at the time, so much of my literal livelihood and, to pay my rent, I was writing about alcohol. So I was kind of self-sabotaging in a way, but also, for the benefit of my health and my future. So it's weird, right?
Yeah. I mean, like personal question, when you were writing about alcohol, like what did you write about? Like, were you writing about the taste of it and like the different brands and like, what was that process for?
It's a great question. So I was writing everything from like new launches to interviewing bartenders to writing about cocktail recipes. I even interviewed like Anthony Bourdain about his drinking experiences.
What? Did you meet him?
Yeah, I have a photo. I'll send it along. I mean, I was interviewing celebrities about their favorite bars and, really like the sky was the limit, but that was a big part of my paycheck. So I don't know that it would have happened any other way, especially with anybody else, because I think that both Al and I are very stubborn. We both wanted to win. And I think it was just like the right time in the right place. It was just really lucky.
So awesome. I think one of the things that I love the most about the way you talk about dry January or just, a dry month or taking breaks from drinking is the things like the specific things that you bring up that people often not use it as an excuse. I'm saying that just because that's the only way I can think to word it right now. But often it does feel that way that like, I would, but I have to go to weddings, but I have to date, but I live in New York City, but I work in this industry, like all those, I have a vacation coming up, all those things that in our minds, it's like, I literally don't know what this would look like without alcohol. And it seems pretty bleak. And you as a person, who did this, I mean, for the most part by choice, like you still did those things, and like you figured out ways to do them and now you talk about ways to do them. And I think that is just such a, lifeline for people that think there's all these things that they're just going to have to give up, forever. And you still find joy in them. So that's my not so subtle segue into tell us about Hawaii, because you went on a very cool vacation without alcohol on purpose. And I think it was probably pretty cool.
It was the coolest. And I just want to say that when you were speaking about all these things, like all I could think about was yes. And now it is like the polar opposite. It's kind of like now when I go to these things and I'm like, why would I want to drink? Because I want to have a clear head tomorrow. Like, I want to sleep well. Like, if I'm going to a wedding, like, I want to be present. Like, it's almost like, but why would I drink? And that gets into like having, options for other people, like, all the non-alc stuff. But I'll tell you all about Hawaii. And you can
all the things. Thank you for saying that. That was really helpful.
So I got back from Hawaii last week. It feels like yesterday. I'm still like peeling because I didn't put on enough sunscreen. But I organized a trip with 5 other people, and we took a dry trip as part of my new brand called goingdry.co, which organizes public and private events. It collaborates with restaurants and bars and hotels to offer more, non-alcoholic options to, have a more inclusive menu for people who are drinking and not drinking or doing whatever they want. But as long as, there's something for everyone. And so part of that, I took some people to Maui, and the Fairmont in Maui actually has a lot of non-alcoholic options. They just opened a new bar and it has like such a variety. They were so delicious, every single mocktail. And I think that it's really important to showcase to people that they can, have these experiences and go on vacation and really have not just a good time, but like a great time, and like why it's beneficial to not drink when you are traveling. Because, on top of the jet lag, on top of the dehydration, on top of all that, like if you are saving up, whether that is like your time and your money and, anything else going on in your world, and making, this trip wherever it is that you decide to go, the last thing you want to do is spend that time like not feeling your best. And I think it opens so many other doors for activities that don't involve cocktails or beer or wine or hangovers. So that's what I did. And it was great. We went like and volunteered. We planted like taro roots. It was crazy. There's like photos of us like in the mud, literally like, ankle deep, like planting things. And we spent time at the pool. We had like a mocktail tasting. We did some like weaving, which we all had like a good laugh at how not artistic we are, but it was all great. And we ate a lot. It was wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the people that you went with, was anyone in your group in recovery, or was it just all a group of people just doing this and choosing not to drink?
I want to say that none of them actually are sober or in recovery. I would maybe say like one of them has probably done a dry month by accident, if at all. And so, it's like, I think it's, it's super helpful too, because like these are people who like wouldn't not have experienced, a vacation this way otherwise. And so I think it's important to like showcase to really everyone that like it's all about having fun. And it doesn't mean that it has to be boozy. So
it's not one or the other. Fun and alcohol, or neither of each.
Exactly.
Like that's not how it is.
I think it's so interesting because it's almost culturally rooted. I mean, you get to talking about, I gotta get away, or I gotta take a vacation. You almost envision, especially when we're talking about like an island or Hawaii, like you almost envision like having, the coconut with the pina colada in your hand, and you're chilling and drinks abundantly, and I'm letting loose, let my hair down, which is the total opposite of what my life is on a regular basis, which I'm super tight and I can't wait to get off of work. And when I get off of work, I need a drink. And I plan on going out and meeting some people this weekend. We're going to go get drinks, and, drinks and drinks and drinks is thus far been crazily rooted in the culture. And so to approach things in a different way, I think is important. And to have that at the forefront of the culture is important. And I think what that's going to do is start to promote that line of questioning, kind of what you mentioned earlier, is like, why, like, do I drink? Like, why do I drink for this? Like, why do I have to get a drink after I get off of work? And I know you mentioned briefly that became kind of your experience where you started kind of asking yourself, like, why do you do these things? And the fact that you still do dry months throughout the year, and you still like partake, how has that experience been for you with that line of questioning a part of how you indulge?
Yeah. So at this very stage in my life, a lot of what I'm drinking now is to compare it to non-alc varietals. So
Mm.
if I am sipping a wine, it's because there's a non-alc wine sitting right next to it. So I can speak to how they compare to each other. I think a lot of the times, I'll make a recommendation to somebody and I'll say, okay, but does it taste like XYZ? And
That is so smart.
my response is like, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. But, these are the ones that are closest to that tasting experience. And these are ones that are probably not going to remind you of like traditional, tequilas or whatever it is that you're trying to match. So I find that the most helpful. I think that if I'm out with friends and I want to like try somebody's drink, I'm not going to like stop myself from doing that. But I'm definitely not drinking like anything more than even like a glass of wine because truth be told, like I can't tolerate it. Like it's just, I'll be like, I gotta go home and take a nap. Like it's not happening for me right now. My tolerance is not it. So it's definitely a 180 from my former life. Yeah.
And so we're creating stuff like goingdry.co and creating challenges and challenging people to get out here and embrace a different way of living. Like, is there a internal motivation for creating these spaces? What drives you to create something like goingdry.co for people to be able to partake in these experiences?
I think I know I'm using this term a lot, but like it's evolved a lot over time. So at first and still, like I definitely want to introduce people to experiences that don't have to have booze tied to them because so much of my career and networking and friendships and relationships were started with a drink. And I don't think that's necessary. I think that there are so many other ways for connection. So that's part of it. Then the other part of it is really introducing people to non-alc wines and beers and spirits and mocktails and things like that so that they know what's out there. I think like the more that people are educated and the more that they, can go to the bar and request certain things, the more that people are demanding these changes, the faster that they'll happen. I mean, I can definitely like, go on TV or podcasts and like talk about it. But like when people have that opportunity to actually try it in person and know what they're asking for, I think it just gives people like the power to request it and make a change. So that's also part of it. And then like, there is like the selfish part of me that's like, hey, these are things that like I want to do and I'm going to involve my friends and like I'm going to go on vacation and like who's coming with me? I think it's a lot, but like there are so many things that I think the first year that I did Dry January, it just had such a big impact on me that I feel like if somebody even takes like a chunk of like one of the things that I learned along the way, I think that it is just all of it just like blew my mind. Like, I mean, I know I talked about sleep, but I think that everybody has such a different experience when they like take a step back and they're like not drinking for maybe it's like a weekend or a week or a month and just kind of like having a better understanding of who they are and like how they feel like without alcohol. I just want to like kind of give that opportunity to people, but like on their own terms. I don't want to like ever be like lecturing people and being like, listen, like, do as I say, not as I do. Instead, I'm coming from a place of like, listen, I'm not in recovery and I'm not 100% sober, but I just want you to try this and like try it on and see how it feels. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with goingdry.co. And the dry challenge is like that too. It's kind of like, listen, like try it for 30 days. Like it's just 30 days. Like the 30 days are going to happen anyway. Like might as well commit to something. If it's not for you, please be careful during your first drink. But I think that people, I think the stat is something like, don't quote me on this, but there's a researcher at the University of Sussex and his name is Dr. Visser. And he found that, I don't know what the percentage is. I want to say it's like 85. Seems really high, but like the majority of people who have done a dry month end up drinking less I think like 9 months later, even. So like, it does make a difference. And even like the health benefits, like it helps your liver even for that month, even though it might not seem like a lot. So that's all.
You are just the one to do this. I just, I think about, feel like I've made this comparison before, maybe when we talked about NA beverages before, but so I don't eat any meat or animal products. I'm vegan. And I was not for the first 3+ decades of my life. And so I'm able to still pretty well, even after quite a few years, know, like, you can tell me this is a vegan hamburger, but like, I mean, this tastes like a lawn, like, come on, I actually have tasted a hamburger. And I gave up the hamburgers, not because I didn't like them, but because I just didn't like how it was made, So, and I'm just thinking the people that created my favorite, vegan versions of food that I no longer eat, like the Impossible Burger. I love an Impossible Burger. I can give a lot of meat eaters Impossible Burgers and they'll like them. But if the person who created that had never, ever had a bite of hamburger, or not recently enough like that, it would have been a lot harder. And that allows me to have meals with people, that I could even cook. I'm going to just give myself a little caveat there that please don't anybody take me up on that because I'm not actually a cook at all. But something that might be in my kitchen, someone else might eat. And it's just a invitation that might not feel the same if I was like, coming at it from the place of all or nothing. You're able to really understand where someone's coming from who might just want to dip their toe in. Moderation is, a thing that's available for folks that like you, and that's amazing. And that like is a group of people that I think might not always know how welcome they are in spaces that are sober spaces, and how much of a difference it makes for you to be out there holding a mocktail, so that maybe if I am out there holding a mocktail and I'm at a vulnerable place in my own recovery, people aren't so eager to be like, why aren't you drinking? Tell me more, and horrified by the fact someone might not be imbibing. Like you're changing the landscape, like the culture, like it's a stigma shifter in a way that I think, I might not be able to do as a person who is sober and must be. So anyways, all those things were swimming in my head. I don't really have any question beyond, please don't make me cook for you.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you make a killer grilled cheese, so maybe
I do. Oh my gosh, I really do.
I will say, like, I think that's why it's so important to have inclusive menus, because it gives people permission to point to something and say, like, I want that. And they know it's available and that like, it'll be, like somebody was trained how to make it, or they know how to make it, or they, practice making it. It's not like asking for something that's off the menu. Like you would do, wouldn't do that necessarily for a food dish. Like you would be like, oh, I'm at a French restaurant, but like, can you make me, I don't know, something else? Like, so something so ridiculous that like it's completely American. I don't know. It has to be
Impossible Burger. I don't know.
It's just like one of those things. I think it's also, there's this app that is so wonderful. It's called Better Without, and it like can help people find, restaurants, bars, hotels, venues that have these non-alcoholic options. And so, if they're in a group of friends and some people are drinking and some people are not, like you can just see what's in the area and go and have fun with your friends. And there's, something for everyone.
I feel like that's the tagline for contemporary recovery for real. Like there's something for everyone for real. Yes. And I've had a couple of conversations. I had a conversation with Elizabeth Gascoigne, who is the founder of Absence of Proof. And, she doesn't identify as in recovery. And I don't think she identifies as sober, but she doesn't drink.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation where it's like, it was kind of in the energy of, I don't want to take up the space of someone who really needs recovery. I was like, no, we need you. We need Hilary. We need as many people to raise their hand and say, this is my flavor of approaching not drinking when I don't drink. And this is what it looks like. And these are the tools that I use, because people need that entry point. Like that's how we broaden the door. That's how we allow for more people to come in and see themselves. So, salute to you, Hilary, for creating things, for being loud about your experience and your journey. And we look forward to seeing the next place that you go.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. So, Hilary, before we hop out of here, on this, I just am so excited, successful tech undertaking we took today. What, how can folks find you and get involved with Dry January, goingdry.co, all the cool things that you're doing, your books? Like, what do you want to shout out? And we'll put everything in the show notes.
Yeah. So check out goingdry.co. Depending on when this airs, there are some events coming up in New York and Charleston and more cities to come. You can find me on Instagram at Hilary with 1 L, Writes NY. And yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty like open on the internet. I'm always like posting on my
You are easy to find.
Yeah, just find me. And like to read my articles whenever they come out. Instead of like a Google alert. Sometimes they're about like living, without alcohol or, related subjects like how to date without, alcohol. Or sometimes they're about, I don't know, the most random thing I probably wrote in the history of the world is I wrote a story for the New York Times about people who get married naked. So it's always different. There's always something new.
We don't need alcohol and we don't need pants.
No, we don't need pants. That's right.
Not the title of the episode.
I'm pretty sure these people were not sober, but that's okay.
I feel like if we get married and we get married naked, like there's nothing I have to hide at this point. Like you done seen everything.
So true.
No,
I know. Oh my gosh.
There's a crossover there somewhere.
Well, thank you, Hilary, for showing up and sharing your experience with us. And we're here in support of you. And thank you all for listening to the episode and share this out to somebody who you know could benefit from hearing a story like Hilary's and could benefit from some of the resources that she shouted out. And we will catch you all on the next episode of the Rise, Recover, Live podcast.
So now you're excited. Bryce, Liz, how do I get involved with the Phoenix? Well, my friend, it is super simple. We actually have an app. Head over to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or look in the show notes of this podcast, wherever you're listening to or watching this podcast, and go download the Phoenix app.
The Phoenix app makes it so easy to find classes that are near you or to access our virtual class schedule where you can hop on from the comfort of your home. You can also join our groups and have a conversation with someone from the Phoenix community from anywhere in the world. Please make sure that you join the podcast group where you can connect with Bryce and I and other listeners. Everything that you need is in the show notes. You can also head to our website at www.thephoenix.org. And maybe while you're there, you click the volunteer tab and get even more involved.